Hey there, welcome to Pulse of the People, where real voices get heard. We dive deep, speak boldly, and break down social and political issues from the people's point of view, raw, honest, and unfiltered.
Absolutely. Ready to dive in.
So, have you ever felt like what you're seeing with your own eyes doesn't quite match what you're being told?
All the time, it's that disconnect, correct?
Exactly. We're going to unpack some of those potential disconnects today. We're looking at recent commentary surrounding the actions and statements of Donald Trump.
Okay, so covering a few different areas.
Yeah, drawing from analysis of his social media, media appearances, reported policy stuff, trying to understand the perspectives being presented.
Got it. Where do we start?
Well, first up is this whole thing with AI imagery and maybe the idea of an unstable persona.
Ah, right. The commentary mentions Trump posting those AI images, like one of him as the Pope.
Yeah, exactly. And it's sort of juxtaposed with these other AI images, cartoons linked to Defense Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
Oh, the ones about, like, budget cuts or operational control. I think I saw something about that.
That's the one. They even apparently highlighted a weird detail about a finger in one image.
Huh. Okay, so the commentary draws a distinction then.
It seems so. The take is that the Buttigieg ones relate, maybe clumsily, but relate to policy specifics.
Whereas the Trump images, the analysis suggests they paint him as, what, unserious? Unstable.
That's the language used in the commentary, yeah. Portraying him that way.
Which I suppose raises questions about intent and perception. What one person sees as maybe, I don't know, edgy or funny.
Another sees as lacking seriousness for the office.
Precisely. It's
Yeah.
about how that communication lands.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's talk economic outlook. Recession talk.
Ah, yes. There was that interview Trump did. Was it Kristen Relker on Meet the Press?
That's the one mentioned. He apparently said he's okay with a recession, called the current situation a transition.
Okay. With a recession. That's a statement.
And the commentary links this to a post attributed to former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
What was that about?
It supposedly had an image from CNN talking about the last boats arriving from China before potential new tariffs really hit hard.
Right. Implying that government policy, these tariffs, could lead to shortages, higher prices down the line.
That seems to be the suggestion in the commentary, yeah. And it notes that CNN is finally reporting on this.
Implying others saw this coming.
Yeah, the analysis mentions earlier discussions about like freight volumes, trucking, looking at photos of ports,
Yeah.
hinting that trouble was brewing.
It makes me think of that Bernie Sanders quote the commentary brought up.
Oh, about important issues being ignored by the news.
Exactly. Like maybe the underlying economic signals weren't getting the attention they deserved.
Which sets up the next point rather nicely. Contradictory economic claims.
How so?
Well, the commentary points to a cartoon image Trump reportedly posted, claiming he, quote, ended inflation and made America affordable again.
Seriously. With phrases like promise kept.
Yeah, promise kept, defeated the cost of living crisis, even mission accomplished, all apparently on this cartoon image.
Wow. But the commentary pushes back on that.
Strongly. It brings up counterpoints people might recognize, like, actual gas prices versus a claimed $1.98 or
Egg prices, weren't they supposedly down 87% in the claim?
something like that, yeah. And housing affordability, which is still a huge issue for so many.
So the analysis basically says these claims might play well with his base. The MAGA much-brained term was used, I think.
It was, yes, that it resonates there, but seems, demonstrably false to others looking at the broader picture.
It really highlights that gap between political messaging and lived economic reality for many.
And tied into this, there's a mention of Charlie Kirk, reportedly in Trump's inner circle, possibly signaling more firings at the CIA. A bit of a side note, but included in the analysis.
Interesting. Okay, back to the economy. Gas prices specifically.
Right. This part of the analysis is fascinating. It suggests Trump might be shown charts of RBOB gasoline prices.
RBOB. Remind me, that's the wholesale stuff, right? Before additives and distribution.
Exactly. Reformulated blend stock for oxygenate blending. It's not what you pay at the pump. But the commentary suggests he's being told it is the pump price.
So a potential misunderstanding or maybe misrepresentation of the actual data.
That's the implication. The analysis even compares it to a time he reportedly misunderstood a Supreme Court ruling, the Brego-Garcia case.
Okay, so the theme is about the accuracy of the information being presented, or perhaps understood.
Precisely. Let's pivot to trade now. International relations.
All right. What's the commentary saying there?
Well, it notes a lack of recent trade deals, No deal Donald, as the source puts it.
Hmm. But he did deals previously.
Yeah, it mentions the deal with Japan back in 2018. But interestingly, the commentary claims he now dislikes that deal.
Really? Similar to his reported stance on the USMCA agreement he himself negotiated.
That's the comparison made, yes. And it raises a point about Japan being America's largest creditor, holding over $1 trillion in treasuries.
Ah, so Japan might have leverage in any future trade talks. That's a significant factor.
It could be. And still on trade, the commentary talks about retailers like Temu.
Oh, yeah. The direct from China sellers. What about them?
Apparently, they're halting direct shipping because of the end of the de minimis tariff loophole.
Right. That allowed small packages under a certain value to come in duty-free. So
Right.
closing that.
Could mean a huge cost increase. The commentary estimates maybe 145%.
Wow. That's a massive potential price hike for consumers buying those goods. A very direct policy impact.
Definitely brings it home. Now, jumping overseas briefly, Australia.
What's happening down under?
Just a quick mention of what the commentary calls the Trump effect there. Peter Dutton, leader of the Liberal Party.
Right. But the analysis suggests Anthony Albanese and the Labour Party are still likely heading for another term.
That's the assessment mentioned. It suggests maybe those political dynamics don't always replicate perfectly elsewhere.
Interesting. Different contexts, different outcomes.
Okay, let's bring it back to contradictory stances, this time on global issues. Ukraine.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
J.D. Vance is quoted saying the war won't end soon.
Right. And the commentary contrasts that with Trump's earlier claim. Remember the peace in 24 hours line?
Which he later said was just a joke, apparently.
That's what was reported. So again, that potential disconnect between initial statements and later clarifications or realities.
It's a recurring theme in this analysis, it seems.
It does. Now let's look at voters, specifically Latino voters' concerns.
Okay. What did the polls or commentaries show?
It references a Hill poll suggesting a majority of U.S. Latino voters feel the country's going in the wrong direction.
A majority. That's significant.
Any specifics? Yeah, examples were given of like Venezuelan and Cuban voters who apparently backed Trump,
Okay.
but are now reportedly unhappy about deportation policies that are affecting people in their own communities.
Ah, so policy impact hitting close to home, potentially shifting views even among previous supporters.
That's the situation described. Plus, there's mention of potentially ending temporary protected status, TPS, for around 500,000 Latinos.
Despite potentially earlier promises not to.
That's the allegation in the commentary. It just highlights how complex voter groups are and how specific policies matter.
Absolutely. Not monolithic at all.
Okay, final major area, priorities and spending. This is where the commentary gets quite pointed.
How so?
It draws a sharp contrast. On one side, reported instances of potential personal or family gain, mentioning Donald Jr.'s executive branch club, a Trump resort in Qatar, potential AI chip exemptions for the UAE linked to crypto.
Okay, so business interests intersecting with policy.
That's the suggestion. And on the other side, reported cuts to public services.
Like what?
Specifically, the commentary notes the administration didn't renew some Biden-era grants, about $1 billion for mental health services in schools.
$1 billion. For school mental health, not renewed.
That's what's reported. And the commentary, via comment from Travis Akers, questions this by asking, essentially, how does defunding mental health square with the Maggier Republican stance that often points to mental health issues regarding school shootings?
Right. That seems like a direct contradiction in priorities, if accurate.
It definitely raises questions about where the resources are going.
And was there anything else on spending?
Yeah, one more thing. A reported plan to spend $92 million, maybe more, on a big military-style parade in D.C.
A parade with soldiers, helicopters, jets.
That's the description. The commentary even uses language like Kim Jong-un-style dictator display to characterize it.
So contrasting that kind of spending with cuts to things like school mental health funding.
Exactly. That's the juxtaposition presented in the analysis we looked at.
Which leads into the concluding tone of the commentary. It sounded quite strong.
Extremely strong. The source material uses terms like vile piece of trash, felon, fraud, criminal, sexual abuser, expresses zero respect. Very blunt language.
Okay, so that's the perspective presented in that analysis.
It is. So, wrapping up our deep dive, we've touched on a lot. AI imagery, those conflicting economic narratives, trade policy shifts, global stances, voter group concerns, and these questions around spending priorities.
Yeah, wide range. The connecting thread, it seems, from the commentary's perspective, is this recurring gap between rhetoric and reported reality, or between different stated positions.
Right. So let's circle back to that first question we asked you, the listener. As you've heard this breakdown of commentary, does it resonate? Does it spark thoughts about things you're observing?
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Considering all these different narratives, these potential disconnects presented in the commentary,
Yeah.
what does it really tell us about navigating information today? What's our role in sorting through it all?
Good question. Thanks for tuning in to Pulse of the People. If you found value, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Catch you in the next episode where your voice always matters.